I'm going to say that we were using the Bible. We were also using the spirit of prophecy. We were using charts. And we were using as tools Miller's rules also. Now, you can add many other things to this, of course. I'm just quoting a couple here for today's presentation. But what I want us to realize is that those are tools that we were using, but always bringing to the line, bringing towards the line. Because when you have a parable, what is the purpose of you having a parable if you don't compare it to something? You have here the natural that you're going to compare to the spiritual. Having the natural, just the natural by itself is not going to help you. You need the spiritual to compare it to. So if we just use external events, but don't align them or apply them to the lines, they don't have much of a purpose. We can't just use it as an end in and of itself. So external events are a tool that we must use, but always bringing them in the light of the Bible and our line today. I don't know if you watched it or not, but Chimène talked about that point more extensively. She explains the logic behind it, goes deeper in the methodology. She presented it, I believe it was when Perimeter came for a weekend in France. So she basically explains how we need to go back to our original basis of that line and not just use external events without bringing them into this line. So today, even though we are going to talk about disengaged voters, the main thing I want us to see is how we can link it to the line for us. We're going to see the external side, those external events linked to this topic, but then I want us to bring it into our line, into our lives, and what does it mean. So in 2018, along with external events, we had the different news outlets that were brought up, along with the topic of voting that became more present into our teachings, our understanding, our focus as a movement. And in this voting, we identified the left and we identified the right as being the two main parties contesting for the win. But we forgot another group here that's quite important, that has quite its importance. You might already know about disengaged voters, who they are, what they are. You might know. But for those who already know, it will be maybe a recap of what it is, but we will explain how those disengaged voters have an impact on elections. So where am I going to write it? I'm going to write that here. What are disengaged voters? We're going to look through some definitions, some quotes from news articles to know more about it. Another term used for disengaged voters is also low information voters. Low information voters. And the name kind of gives you the idea of what disengaged voters are. And they can identify both as from the left and the right, Republicans or Democrats, or nothing at all. It depends what they identify as. So I will share my screen if that works. Okay. Wait, I need to see the quote. Okay, so this first quote is from New York Times, if I'm not mistaken, which says that disengaged voters can be thought of as people who are registered to vote but do not follow politics closely. demographically, disengaged voters are more often are younger, more often are women, are less likely to have a college degree than politically engaged voters. So, what do we see here? We can see here that disengaged voters do not follow politics. Either because they are not interested in it, or because they don't care. Or maybe they care, but like they don't really have an interest in it. They don't really see the interest of it. Another element we can see also is voters who are paying less attention, pollsters say, tend to be younger or more working class and are more likely to engage late in the race if they do at all. Here we see another point, is that some of them, not all of them, do engage in the race, but quite late. And another point also that we can see is that they're going to engage in politics, they're going to participate in elections, but mostly in big elections. And why is that important or significant per se? So we did say that disengaged voters are people who are not interested by politics or just not following politics, and that they can still participate in elections, but it's going to be mostly big elections, like presidential elections, without without them knowing what's happening. So when they're going to get slightly interested in politics during big election time, it's because the news of it are going to be everywhere. It's not necessarily because they're going to look for the news as much as the news is going to find them, if that makes sense. So those people are called news find me people. They're not necessarily going to watch the presidential debates, the candidates' debates, any information. They're just going to, it's out there. Everyone's kind of talking about it, so they're going to get involved. They might get involved by themselves if, like, the big election somehow interests them, but they're not really interested in political information or news still. So when we have these different points of disengaged voters who might be from the left, might be from the right, might be from no specific party, we have that information that they are low information voters, they do not follow politics, and they're not really looking for the news rather finds them. So if you, what's interesting when I first read about it and first looked into it is that when you present those points, you're basically describing me before the message arrived, the external message arrived. I was voting because it was a political duty to do so in France, but I wasn't really interested in politics and what was happening. I was rather looking at, all the ballots you get in the mail. I was looking at their faces, their slogans, and not even reading what they say because, in my mind, it's like, oh, they just want to grab your attention. They're just promises. They're not going to do any of that. So I was in that category for myself. I was not interested in politics. Never have been, and never have been in the past, because I don't like all those, debates that they do where they almost scream at each other. So for me, I'm like, okay, so there has to be something more to it about those disengaged voters. There has to be, because there is a danger to it. And this danger is quite interesting because if you don't know about politics, you don't follow politics, and yet they do participate in some elections, they do participate in the big elections, for example, Trump versus Biden in the previous elections. So what is the danger of them not following politics, not having information about politics, but still voting? That's when we see some of the dangers of it. I'm going to reshare my screen. or this one. It says an NBC News poll conducted last month found that 15% of voters surveyed said they did not follow political news closely. Among those voters, Mr. Trump had an edge of 26 percentage points over Mr. Biden. So that's interesting because here it's talking about disengaged voters. The 15% of voters surveyed said they did not follow political news closely. So disengaged voters are not following, and yet are not following political news. And yet, among those voters, which means they are voting still, Mr. Trump has an edge of 26 percentage points over Mr. Biden. So what do we see here? Somehow, we don't know exactly how yet, somehow they are pro-Trump. Somehow, a lot of them, I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them are pro-Trump. There's a place where we can see that Trump has more consensus among them. The rest of the quote says that by contrast, among voters who primarily consume news through newspapers, national network and cable news, 54% of those surveyed, Mr. Biden was up by 11 points. So here, we're going to mention, I'm going to call this group engaged voters. Those who show at least a bit of interest in politics, follow at least the bigger parts of politics, and those who are really involved in politics. So they follow the news, they follow politics, and among them, there is a tendency for people who are engaged in politics, there's a tendency for them to be more pro-Biden than pro-Trump. And we can notice from that quote that they follow, they consume news through newspaper, national network, and cable news. So I'm going to call that mainstream media. They are following mainstream media, and that leads them to have to tend more to be pro-Biden. So TV, newspapers. So the article that I am quoting for, as you can see, it is from May 2024. So I am going to mention Biden versus Trump, even though Biden backed down from the election race. Just to represent, of course, we know it represents Democrats versus Republicans, but because I am using that quote, I'm going to use Biden. So somehow we see that being engaged in politics or not engaged in politics is going to could very well bring you to a different conclusion, even if you are not interested in politics. And that's the interesting point, is that those people are not following politics, and yet they are more attracted to Trump. So when I saw that, I had kind of, it was hard for me to really wrap my mind around why, like, they don't care about elections, so why would they even choose Trump or a side? Why would there be a majority choosing a side? And an interesting fact, just as a side note, is that there is the amount or the percentage of people who are actually engaged voters, who really consider politics as a big part in their life, is quite a minority in America, when we see, because people don't like too much that people don't like people who are well engaged in politics in general. So what is it about those disengaged voters that pulls them towards Trump rather than Biden? Why would they choose Trump? There are several reasons for it, and we're going to survey a couple. One of the elements is communication. One of the elements is communication. Trump communicates differently from Biden, and we'll see that a bit later. The other point is, I'm going to write it as a topic, but what I mean by that is the importance that you bring to different topics might not be the same as, for example, a Democratic will have a topic that will be primarily important for him, which might not be the same for Republicans. So topic, the important topic that you put first when considering a candidate. Of course, there are other reasons, but I want us to start with these ones to see why the amount of information you have can lead you to different conclusions politically. Even if you're not interested politically, you're still led to a political direction, if I can say like that. So, as we said, disengaged voters are what their name means. They have very low information in regards to politics. We're going to continue with the New York Times article, which explains how having low information is quite terrible, actually. For those of you who might be on social media, Instagram, TikTok, all of those social media, you might have come across a video, or videos, by the way, of guys interviewing people in the streets and asking them basic questions. Like, it's mostly they're asking some American folks some questions about, okay, what country is this? Who's the president? Who's the vice president? Who's in charge? Which party is in charge of this, of the Senate, of the court, the Supreme Court, which party, etc. And some people, I'm not going to say everyone, because it's not the case, but a lot of people are what I would call disengaged voters. They have low information on basic things. A lot of the low information voters often don't know the most basic answers. And it has terrible implications, quite terrible implications. And the New York Times article explains how that's the case. Share my screen. Okay, so it says here, if you ask me right now what's going on with like the presidential race or the situation in Gaza or Ukraine or whatever, I don't think I can answer, said Mr. Perez, who supported Mr. Trump in 2020 and is intrigued by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. now. I'm not trying to follow that anymore. Instead, said Mr. Perez, a valet who hopes to become a firefighter, I'm just going to have to roll with the punches because I don't think I'm going to make a difference. That's quite scary. When I read that, it was quite scary to realize, okay, I mean, you don't even have to watch the news to know what's going on in Gaza or Ukraine or whatever. And that person is saying, okay, I don't even know what's going on in the presidential race. I'm not interested in that. I'm not trying to follow that anymore, he says. And still, what do we see? He supported Mr. Trump in 2020. So one of the reasons he gives for this is that he doesn't think that he's going to make a difference. So that's one thing also, is that they don't think they make a difference. And therefore, they're not interested in participating, because for them, who cares anyways? What's going to happen is going to happen. I don't care. It's not going to be that big of a deal. They don't even know basic things. They could have because when I read that, it was like the presidential race, situation in Gaza or Ukraine are main topics. If he had said more specific topics, maybe I could have understood, but those are quite big topics, if we can say. It continues to say that recent New York Times, Siena College, Philadelphia Inquirer surveys found that nearly 20% of voters in battleground states said Mr. Biden was responsible for ending the constitutional right to abortion, even though it was Mr. Trump's choices for the Supreme Court who helped overturn Roe versus Wade. Almost half of the country believes the unemployment rate is at a 50-year high, a Harris poll conducted for The Guardian found, even though it is near a 50-year low. So that is just giving you more examples of the impact that having low information can have on your life. Because if you just look at life, if you don't try to search or find information, you're going to find yourself as being those 20% of voters who think that Mr. Biden is responsible for overturning Roe versus Wade. When they did, basically they just, okay, it happened during Biden's term, so it's him. They don't look further to know, okay, who's in the Supreme Court, who was selected for the Supreme Court, and therefore Trump, etc. They really go just superficial level at what they see, and they don't look for anything else. So it's quite scary to see that much of a difference. And that second paragraph is interesting because it talks about the unemployment rate. They think it's at a 50-year high when it's near a 50-year low. And we will see that in a little bit. But basically, because they don't see the bigger pictures, because disengaged voters don't see outside of what they want to see outside of what is important for them in their life, they cannot put in perspective some things. So, for example, they see COVID, they see people around them being unemployed because of it or because of different elements. And for them, they don't see, okay, on the scale of America, the United States, we are near a 50-year low on unemployment rate. They just see, okay, in their surroundings, in their family, around them, they don't, they're not able to leverage their viewpoint. So, it says also, in a recent Political Morning Consult poll, voters were divided over who had done more to promote infrastructure improvements and job creation. Mr. Biden signed a $1 trillion infrastructure bill into law, while Mr. Trump repeatedly failed to advance the issue. This is another example of having low information, and therefore the information that you do have being biased or being false. And here it kind of explains another element of it, or the reason of it maybe. It says that when your team's losing, you don't read the sports page after the game, said Ken Goldstein, a professor of politics at the University of San Francisco. You have a big swath of the country that just thinks they're losing when it comes to politics. And so the way to deal with that is just not to pay attention. And this goes with the point that we made here of they don't think that they make a difference. And they don't think that they make a difference. The country is in such a bad position that anyway, like, I'm just not going to pay attention because what I'm going to do is not going to change anything. And it's just so bad, it can't be fixed. If I can't do anything, nobody can do anything. And so I'm just not going to pay attention to politics in general. So this basically, the way they have, the reason why, the reason they have such a bad information, not only do they have low information, but they have bad information when they do have information, is actually what the reason why they are mistaken on many points. As I said, they don't see outside of their line of vision. They don't focus on bigger forces at hand, because in politics right now, we can see the fight for democracy, the fight for freedom, the fight for equality. But for them, that's not important. For them, what they focus on is the troubles that they're facing in their day-to-day life. And I'm going to call that, what is the name now? I'm going to call that the butter and bread fight. For them, what's important right now is what they can see, what impacts them. So we said that disengaged voters are often middle class or working class. And what is middle class faced with right now? We could say inflation, poverty, economic crisis. So in this context, what will be the most important thing for them? It's going to be something or someone who can answer to this particular point in particular. Even they don't care about the other elements that they're going to bring for them. It's just this butter and bread fight. If someone can answer to that, whatever they're going to say next to it, they don't care. They don't follow politics. That's what's going to be important for them. So I'm going to share because there's like this one. Yeah. Here it says, and it's quite interesting to see this point, actually. It says that Trump, I think, he gets up there and talks a lot of stuff, said Carla Williams, 50 of Detroit. But Mrs. Williams, who said she was often too busy with her work at an auto factory and a hotel to follow the news closely, said she was considering him anyway. She faulted Mr. Biden, whom she said she supported in 2020, for the high cost of living. People out here are struggling, she said. Everything is expensive. So we can see here Mrs. Williams being a disengaged voter because she doesn't follow the news closely. And still, she's considering Trump. Why? Because she's faulting Biden of being the reason of the high cost of living nowadays. Here it explains then that for voters who pay less attention to the news, short-term forces tend to play a dominant role in their thinking about politics, said Christopher H. Achen, an emeritus professor of politics at Princeton University. If the price of egg goes up, they're more likely to vote against the incumbent, even if the incumbent has nothing to do with the price of eggs, he said. So we'll come back to that point. Those are among the concerns driving Paul Ferrando, 61 of Henderson, Nevada, to consider voting for the first time, he said. You go to the grocery stores, $150 for one bag, said Mr. Ferrando, who works in construction and said he was too busy to closely follow the news. It's a joke. He added of Mr. Trump, this year I might vote just to make sure he gets in. So here we see that their main purpose, their main point is about inflation, is about economy, is about something that actually affects them right now, today. And because of that, because as we said, if the price of egg goes up, they're more likely to vote against the incumbent, even if the incumbent has nothing to do with the price of eggs. So just because, so for them, prices have gone up. And they don't look further to know, okay, what happened? There was the pandemic. It happened. Inflation happened all around the world. It's not just Biden's fault. It happened everywhere. And they're not trying to look further to it because they're not interested in politics or any world events, actually. And because of that, they want just the opposite. They want someone who's not going to be.
Elisa.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. So I was saying they're going to look for someone who's not the one in charge right now. Anyways. Another point here also says that additionally, disengaged voters are not as ideologically driven and often prioritize immediate economic issues over broader political or ideological concerns. This pragmatic approach makes Trump's straightforward economic promises more appealing compared to Biden's policies, which might be perceived as more complex or less impactful on their daily lives. So here again, because they are not following politics. They want something that a topic that directly impacts them, and they don't see beyond what they want, or broader topics, or the fight for democracy, or even when we talk about the right to abortion. Maybe it was not a big element for them back then, but years later we see that it did affect. It does affect people today. I think there's another part here. No, that was it. Okay. So as I was saying, their fight is not for democracy. It's not for freedom. It's not for equality. It's for topics that they think important for themselves. We've had a lot of elections in the world this year, and we've had European elections and also French legislative elections. And although the far right did not win in France, it was the first time that it gained so many seats in the assembly. And I was kind of questioning myself and wondering, okay, why does the people want the far right to be present so much? Because a lot of the voters who voted for the far right were actually young people who for whom it might be the first time that they're voting ever. And so by talking to people afterwards, I realized that their concerns, for a lot of people, their concerns were, okay, the far right says that they're gonna remove the law about retirement, which brings retirement later on. They're gonna increase minimum wage. They're gonna do this, they're gonna do that, inflation and stuff. And I was like, okay, so your concerns are the butter and bread fight. You're not looking forward further to democracy, to the fight for democracy, to the actual values that they stand for, the far right, being racism, sexism, etc. And that, I think that's why we see so much the far right rising up, is because people are not actually really interested in politics. As we said, people who are really interested are actually the minority in America, but also around the world. So they're gonna care about minor topics, that day-to-day topics that affect them. They don't see the bigger picture as being important to them. It doesn't seem to impact them or affect them as much as economy seems to right now. They're going to care more about economics than wondering if Trump is going to uphold their democracy, or even if he's fit for office, actually. And as we read, Trump seems to answer their needs. Trump seems to offer them what they ask for. So there was also another element that I found interesting in this topic of disengaged voters. We mentioned in the first, I think it was the first or the second quote, that engaged voters tend to be mostly pro-Biden, and it's people who are using or watching mainstream media, meaning TV, newspapers, etc. And as compare and contrast, if you want to put it that way, here we're going to see social media being present. And this is where we go into the communication bit. We did also mention that disengaged voters tend to be younger. Now, what does that mean? Because they're younger, they use social media, but they're still not following politics, and they're still voting. So, as a young person, I'm born in an age where information is everywhere, all the time. Here we see the birth of the internet, we mark an increase of knowledge in our line, but we can also see an increase of knowledge externally for the external line, with information being everywhere all the time. Before the birth of the internet and social media, modern day social media, there only was a couple channels on TV that you could watch. And if you wanted to watch your show in the evening, you had to watch the news first. You couldn't pick a channel where all you could see all day was a show. And so information today is not the same. You can pick and choose exactly what you want without having to watch other things. And the problem is that we have more information, but it doesn't mean that we know more, because we are choosing exactly what we want and have the ability to not have what we don't want. So back then, if you were interested still in politics, if you were not interested in politics, actually, you still were like watching or hearing at least the big titles on TV. If sports was your jam, if sports was something that you liked, you still had to flip through the pages of a newspaper to showing you the titles, the biggest titles. Maybe you didn't want to read them, but you had a basic knowledge of what it was. And a practical example of this, and I think the difference that we can see maybe in generations, is that a friend of mine told me earlier this week, the person told me, oh, you know what, I'm going to watch the Olympics opening night on TV. And I was thinking, I was like, oh, okay, well, why are you going to watch it on TV? And she told me, well, it's a one-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It's a one-in-a-lifetime event. You have to watch it. Do you imagine if someone is going to ask me, okay, did you see it? It would be a shame if I didn't. That's what the person said. So she told me, how am I supposed to know what happened on Olympic night if I don't watch it on TV? And I didn't say anything. I just remained silent because I realized that I'm a bit different. Maybe I'm not the only one as a young person to feel that way, but I didn't see things the same way. Actually, for me, it didn't matter if I was watching the Olympics opening night on TV. And why is that? Because, well, Instagram was going to show me people posting videos of the Olympics opening night, and it was going to give me basically a summary of the big moments that happened that night. I was going to learn about the Olympics from what people share on Instagram. So basically, I don't need to watch the Grammys, the Olympics. I don't need to watch all of that, because Instagram's going to give you, without even you looking for it, the highlights or the main elements of those events. And even Trump's assassination attempt, you don't need to watch it on TV or in the news, because social media, in a couple minutes, is going to give you snippets. It's going to give you videos of it without you, again, having to look for that information. So now social media becomes a news outlet, but a dangerous one this time. So we'll see how now, I'm going to give a couple quotes to see how social media, those people have no information. They're consuming information, if they do consume information, through social media. And somehow, them using social media is going to lead them to be pro-Trump, because we see that engaged voters are using mainstream media and are mostly pro-Biden. So there is a question here about what media of information you use, what source of information you use. So I'm going to share. Yes, this one, which says that many Americans now consume political news through social media, and TikTok's emergence has greatly accelerated that trend. By 2023, almost a third of people aged 18 to 29 were regularly getting news from TikTok, a hub for liberal causes that has also had
an uptick of pro-Trump influencers since the last election. So here we see that almost a third of people aged 18 to 29 are regularly getting news from TikTok. And that's scary. I understand it because you can have anything and everything on social media, on TikTok, on Instagram, on Twitter, everywhere, on YouTube. You can have everything you look for. But there is somehow a danger in it. And we see that it talks about an uptick of pro-Trump influencers since the last election. We're going to talk about it a little bit more in a moment. So somehow those people are getting influence, are getting politics unconsciously from social media. Actually, I had another part. Yeah. It says here, disengaged voters often get their information from non-traditional sources like social media rather than mainstream media. This shift in information consumption makes them more susceptible to Trump's messaging, which is heavily disseminated through these channels. One thing that's interesting also is that a lot of people nowadays tend to distrust mainstream media because they think, okay, they have an agenda. You know, this all conspiracy theories people, they're going to tell you they have an agenda, they want to push you towards one direction, and so you can't be a sheep and watch mainstream media. And on those platforms, on social media, on Instagram, on TikTok, on YouTube, influencers now claim, okay, no, you can't follow mainstream media. They're going to push down your throat a path they want you to follow. Just follow us because I have no affiliation with the mainstream media. So I'm not pushed by them to give you an agenda. I'm just going to give you things according to what I see, according to what is true for them, of course. So there is that element of conspiracy theories and of distrust of mainstream media that profits to those social media influencers. So, wait, where am I? So it's quite interesting to see this information actually that is present among young people. I want to share with you a picture of social media post. I do understand that maybe I'm not on TikTok. I'm using mostly Instagram, but maybe some people don't really know much on TikTok or on social media or following that type of media anyway, that type of content on social media anyways. So let me share a picture with you that explains how social media has an influence unknowingly on your brain. So this is a picture. No, I went too far. Yeah, this one. This is a picture of a TikTok video that says that Donald Trump gets flipped off by Bill Burr's wife at UFC event. And this is probably like a couple seconds video. I don't exactly know, but it's quite short anyways. And it's not there to, at first sight, it's not there to promote an agenda when you see it. But if you look at the caption down there, it says he's not safe anywhere. So Trump is not safe anywhere. And when you see that video without knowing anything about the news, you tend to think, okay, Donald Trump is here. You don't know why he's here. He might be there just to have fun, just to watch the UFC fight, just to be there, just to watch the thing. It might be for a political role. You don't really know when you just see that and you're not interested in politics. And you're like, he might just be there to have fun. And he gets flipped off by someone at a UFC event you're supposed to have fun at. So he's not safe anywhere. He's going to get attacked anywhere, no matter what he does. And when you see that, in less than 30 seconds, your brain somehow trains you to think, okay, oh, I feel bad for him. I feel sorry for him. Really, it must not be nice to go everywhere and to get hated everywhere. So even though it's just a random post or a random video, it somehow conveys that feeling of, oh, he's not safe, I feel sorry for him. And here again, we see that this is what is being shared actually. It says that influencers like Candace Owens and Charlie Kirk are highly active on social media, promoting conservative viewpoints and often supporting Trump's agenda. Their posts, videos, and live streams reach millions of followers, many of whom are young and active on platforms like Instagram and Twitter. They play a crucial role in shaping the political opinions of their followers and keeping Trump's narrative in the forefront of online discussions. So I was not really aware of the different influencers that are pro-Trump or promoting Trump's ideas. But that's the trick, actually. And we'll talk a bit more about it. But coming back to those influencers who are promoting Trump's agenda, it's quite deceitful because they are often talking to a young audience, very young, sometimes even younger than what they should be supposed to on those platforms. And a lot of those people maybe do not have their political ideas made up yet. And they are going to use that platform to inform people who don't follow politics and low information voters, to make them feel sorry for Trump, realize, okay, they're just attacking him for no reason. A lot of content, if you see it, I came across a video, is meant for people who have no idea what politics are about. I came across a video about Project 2025. A woman was talking about, I have no idea what Project 2025 is about. I just hear everyone dissing it, everyone hating it everywhere. But you've probably heard it also, like just people dissing Project 2025. So why are they just dissing it? So I just read quickly the different points of Project 2025, and she starts to explain how basically Project 2025 is not bad because it's about restoring family, restoring faith, and other points like this. And the way she brings it into light, if you have no idea what Project 2025 is about, she brings it in the light of like, why are we all hating on Project 25? I want Project 25 myself. And that's where subconsciously you could get tricked if you are not an information voter, if you're a disengaged voter, or even just young people, tricked to believe in Trump's narrative, even if you don't know that's Trump's narrative being presented to you. And that's the trick, actually. That's a lot of people do not necessarily have a political agenda, but by some of the things they're going to present to you, it's going to present elements like, I don't know, the trad wife trend, or all those different elements. It's going to subtly bring into your minds elements that are going to be pro-Trump. We have another example here, which I find striking, especially if you are kind of aware of the different things that can go viral, what makes a video viral, what interests people in videos. It's the thumbnails of the videos. So we see here good editing, good Photoshop being made to catch your attention. And also titles that make you want to click on the video. For example, the White House is lying about why Joe Biden dropped out. It's like they're bringing you into a secret revelation that no one knows about. So it's, when you see the numbers, this is like, when you see the 68K videos, it's not even the most watched video. It's like in 18 hours, 68K people watched it. It's just crazy when you see it. So by using all those strategies, we can see that Trump's campaign can reach a broader audience, basically by using trusted voices and familiar platforms. For example, I don't know if you know Logan Paul or Jake Paul. They're quite very popular among the young people by making videos, etc., challenges, etc. And Trump actually interacted with Logan Paul in a short video. And so somehow young people are like, oh, he's nice, he's close. They don't really say anything important, they just joke around. But for young people, it's like, oh, he's close to us. Okay, Jake Paul, Logan Paul, they endorse him, even if they don't, but they endorse him. And so they feel closer to him. And another point also is that disengaged voters who are going to watch, for example, reality shows because they're using social media, which can be different streaming platforms, are often led to believe in the American dream because that's what's presenting in those shows. And so then when Trump arrives and presents his plan of make America great again, it seems wonderful. It seems exactly what they were looking for. So that's what is leading them to Trump. Now, the trap is believing that you're only going to watch sports. I'm only watching reality shows. I'm only watching YouTube. And not believe that in this, you're getting politics, because you are getting politics from somewhere. And it's very subtle, but they're shaped without realizing it to fit into a political mold, which is why they don't follow politics, and yet they're going to tend to vote for Trump in the majority. It's quite surprising also to note that there is, I get confused often with that, there is less difference between disengaged Democrats and Republicans than there is between disengaged Democrats and a highly involved Democrat. So there's a higher gap there between a disengaged Democrat and an engaged Democrat, actually. So, all this talk, we talked about disengaged voters, who they are, and how they can affect elections, because they don't know anything and they're just going to look for who finds them, basically. And Trump being quite active on social media is most likely going to find them before Biden does, before Democrats do. So, so we presented the external fact of this, the external element of this. And remember, our point is, of course, to present it externally, but to link that internally for us. And to link it internally for us, I don't want to talk about, okay, are we engaged voters? We should follow politics, because we know that we know. We have to follow external events. We have to follow politics in order not to fall into this trap. But I want to bring this element to us, like me personally, in the movement. And the question I want to ask you all, of myself first and you all, is what is our level of involvement in the movement? Are we engaged members of the movement or disengaged members of the movement? Are we going to be occasional voters per se, or are we going to be involved deeply in the movement? Because remember, the movement is made up of you, of me. It's made up of individuals who form this corporate movement, this corporate group. At the beginning, I was saying that often we do news article review presentations. And the reason I fear that we are doing this is, maybe I'm wrong, but from what I understand is that maybe we are a bit lost. And by that, I mean that we maybe feel like sheep without a shepherd. We feel that maybe we have no message anymore because maybe there's no messenger or things are confusing. So I want to call us today, and myself first, to wake up. And don't wait for messengers to come and to give you a message, to fit it in your mouths like babies. We had food from 1989 all the way to even after the pre-season line. For all this line, we had food that was given to us. We had forks, we had knives, we had tools, we had methodology, and we were also explained how to use them. So now it's up to us to know, do I just hang around? Do I just listen? Or am I going to get involved? And am I going to use those tools to work myself now? Am I going to barely get involved and just be around for big decisions maybe? Or am I going to get implied in my ministry, in my movement to advance the work? Am I just like, again, it comes to, this double role. Am I just going to be a watcher? Or am I also going to be an actor? Am I going to wait for the different elders to give me a message? Or am I going to go forward and teach others myself? Another question that I ask myself personally, and that I want to present also to you, is, do I only prepare studies when I'm asked to present? Or do I study for myself to be ready to share it with others? I don't know how is it for you here in America, but in my ministry, and I think it's the same from around the world, from people I've heard, ever since the pandemic and elder tests being away, we are Laodiceans. We are in a lethargic state. We are sleeping. We're waiting. We are just like the SDA Church. We just come for Sabbath presentations. We wait for those presentations to feed us. And we forget that the manna that we get on Sabbath is not supposed to feed us for the rest of the week. That what is supposed to feed us for the rest of the week is the manna that you're going to pick up daily yourself. So I pray that maybe we might not be afraid to step up, to talk, to present, to share our thoughts with others, to be active in the movement outside of the big, I'm going to call the election time, but you understand, outside of the big moments, and just to present your studies, just to basically wake up and to be present, because we used to have that zeal, we used to have that fight, that presence, that zeal, and where is it now? We're just waiting around for presentations to come and to watch them, and we're not active. Like the work now, maybe the reason why there's no message or no message coming around is because we need to bring that message. We need to present that message. We need to be there as individuals in this movement. We need to, if we want to present that message to others, we have to present it to each other first. If you do, and Elder Perminder talked about it also, if you do studies, it might not be perfect the first time around. It might contain mistakes. Who cares? Because if you want to get better, if you want to get counsel, if you want to get rebuke, if you want to get criticisms, you have to present. If you want to get better, you have to put something out there, because otherwise it's not going to help you to advance if you want to advance in the movement, in the message, and not be left behind. And also, because there's this dynamic of we are not often, maybe we do meet in person more, but we are not often we do not have often in-person meetings. So sure, it's going to be on Zoom. Sure, it's going to be through the computer, through Zoom. But at least let's do the effort to do it and to use those times not as to not feel like the studies that we present are rock solid teachings, not to be scared to make mistakes, but to feel like we are just exchanging with each other. So we're changing our presentations and just trying to advance and bring truths and bring elements in this movement anyways, because we should not be like those people and feel like we don't make a difference. Every single person, and we know that for voting, people, individuals do make a difference. So why would it be different for us internally? You yourself as an individual should make a difference in the movement, should bring something, should bring your stone. So I want to encourage you, as a closing thought, to stop arguing over the basic truths that are presented, that are established. Stop arguing over whether the Sabbath is still present or not, because those are established truths. But to wake up, to work, to be active, and to share the word, and just exchange and be active members and not disengaged voters in the movement. I invite you to pray with me. Dear God, I want to thank you for this Sabbath day that you're giving us. Lord, you see the state of your people and the maybe tiredness of we are tired to have so much zeal, maybe. Lord, I pray for myself first, that you may help me and also help all your people present here and throughout the world to wake up, to be active in your movement, to bring their stone to the foundation, their stone to the temple, because we each need to bring our stones to build this temple. And if we do not bring it, the temple is going to be built anyways, but without us. Please, Lord, help us to wake up, to be active, and to be as you want us to be full of energy, full of your energy. I pray for everyone here that you may bless them, bring your Holy Spirit upon them. Thank you for this opportunity of being present, of being able to be with my fellow members, my brothers, my sisters. May you bless all the families present. May you bless all your people who is worshiping you during this Sabbath day. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Elisa.